Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Robert, and today I want to discuss Fallout, the board game by Fantasy Flight Games. And just so you know, I also made a video on Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which I'm going to leave a link to if you want to hear my extended thoughts on that. And I'll also make a comparison video between the two, between this and Wasteland Warfare, if you're trying to pick your tabletop Fallout fix. So when I do eventually get to do that, I'll leave a link here. But today we're discussing Fantasy Flight Games' approach to creating a tabletop Fallout experience. Okay, so I acquired this a couple of years ago, and I heard that the Atomic Bonds expansion fixed the or improved upon the solo experience from the base game. Okay, so I acquired it with all the expansions, and my experience from the beginning has since I started playing the game about a month ago with all the Fallout TV show craze. Okay, decided to finally get this on the table, but um, I added all the expansions from the beginning, which is something that I don't tend to do, to be honest with you. I really like typically just playing the pure base game experience and then adding expansions to see what how they integrate into the game. But this is one of those exceptions I've made because the overwhelming majority of people feel that the Bonds expansion is Atomic Bonds expansion and how it changes the solo experience is essential. Okay, so I'm not gonna be able to tell you how the base game experience feels without the Atomic Bonds expansion. So my opinion will be just with all the expansions integrated, New California and Atomic Bonds. Okay. All right, so my experience with the game has been playing the Commonwealth scenario multiple times, which is the initial scenario that's suggested if you're playing the game for the first time. So that's what I have set up here. Okay, that's the end of the scenario. Okay, playing with the Vault Dweller character, and I also played the Capital Wasteland scenario. So just so you know, these scenarios are based on different entries to the video game. So Capital Wasteland is based on Fallout 3, and the Commonwealth is based on Fallout 4. And from what I understand, other scenarios are based on Fallout 1 and 2, and so on. So there's various scenarios for you to explore, but those are the two I've experienced. And one thing I'll get out of the way, just playing the Commonwealth scenario, which is a relatively basic scenario, it played extremely different multiple times. So I never felt bored or it never felt samey to me playing just this Commonwealth scenario. So it's just a great property of the game already, how varied it is from we're just playing the same scenario. Very varied, extremely varied. So I like that. Um, so yeah, that's my experience with the game. Played that multiple times, and I also played controlling. The majority of my games were just controlling one character. I also played a couple games controlling two characters. So one cool thing about this game is that it lets you play with just one character. Which for these adventuring games, I usually I much more prefer playing with just one character. There's a couple RPGs like party-based games. I'm okay with controlling multiple characters, but for these adventuring games, to give you other examples, Runebound, Gloom of Kilforth, I just much more prefer controlling one character. But certain scenarios you might be a bit motivated to try controlling two characters because it might relieve some of the pressure. So let me explain what I mean by that. So when you add the Atomic Bonds expansion, the game goes from a competitive game, which in the base game expansion there's some modified rules to get around the competitive element for you to play solo. Some people feel that it might have been a bit of an afterthought, but some people enjoy it. But anyway, with the Atomic Bonds expansion, it makes the game truly co-op and soloable. And what it does is it changes the scenario parameters, right? So in the base game expansion, you are supposed to, or you have the ability to, as the scenario progresses, you can change allegiances between factions. So there's a faction element here when you do the quests, right? So with the Atomic Bonds expansion, you have to pick a faction to align yourself to from the beginning. Okay, what that does is with this Atomic Bonds sheet, there's two sides. So you set up the scenario the same way you would in the base game, but now you use this sheet to keep track of the scenario progress. Okay, so you pick your faction from the beginning. Okay, and then you stick with that faction for the duration of the scenario, so you stick with that faction for the duration of the scenario. So it kind of puts you on. When you complete quests, you have to only in order to progress towards the victory conditions. You can only do quests because you have choices for the quests, right? As you can see here. So you have to only do quests that complete quests objectives that benefit that faction. Okay. But I'm okay with that. Some people say that the ability to change allegiances in the middle of the game and that dynamic is lost here. I don't really mind, but I have heard a couple people say that it's a bit of a bummer that dynamic is lost. But again, I have not played the game without any expansion, so I can't speak to that. But I'm okay with this. What this also does is it increases replayability because now you essentially have two scenarios in one. So you go from having one scenario with that dynamic, and now you get to pick the faction from the beginning. So that increases the replayability. So I like that. I don't mind that. Now, speaking of the quests, so one really cool thing this game does. So if you don't know if it's not already evident, so there's an adventuring game. Okay, so you're gonna pick your character. You're gonna move around there's an overland element. You're gonna move around, explore. So there's an exploration element. You're gonna level up. There's the RPG elements. You're gonna level up your character. You're gonna gain loot, allies, perks, currency. There's even a bit of with the expansion content. There's a bit of a working on like your settlement type situation. So these are workbench cards that you gain by completing quests that grant you something that it equates to working on improving your settlement from the video game. All right, and it can grant you some pretty powerful boons. All right, when you do that, but. So yeah, you're gonna gain your cards, allies. You're gonna explore the land, complete quests. So when you pick a scenario, there's gonna be a starting quest line, but as you explore and you encounter locations, other quest lines are gonna be added. So there's these decks that you're not supposed to shuffle. You're supposed to keep them in numerical order, and every time a quest instructs you to stage one of these quests, you're going to put them in this area, and those are going to be quests available for you to tackle. Okay, and typically when you finish one of the options, when you complete one of the objectives, so most quests are going to have two options, and when whichever one works out for you at the moment, maybe you don't want to have combat, maybe you want to choose the non-combat option for the quest, right? So you're gonna pick your quest objective, completed, and then it'll instruct you to stage other cards. So it'll be this quest chain that you continue. So I really, really like this, and I know I experienced this from the Skyrim board game, which I know that they actually took from this. It's a bummer that I didn't end up liking Skyrim. I much more like this game. But this is just such a cool element. So one thing I want to go ahead and say is just, I think this is one of the most amazing storytelling sandbox tabletop experiences that I've played. The way that the emergent stories that it tells is just so good at that. As you explore, these quest lines are gonna come up. Funny like situations are gonna happen with like your companions, or the if you decide to play with two characters, the type of board states that can occur with enemies chasing you around the board, and the exploration, the radiation. There's so many little elements here that just it lends itself for creating awesome emerging stories. One of the best the in this category of adventuring games, and I think a lot of it is thanks to this. Okay, because a lot of these adventuring games, they'll be more a bit more mechanical, and they'll have a bit of flavor text, but there's just some, and that really is it. Like there'll be some, like, you'll gain an armor or complete an event, and there'll be a bit of flavor text, and that's it. But these quest cards, they just add that magic. Like it's like that magic, like X factor, or right, or like that magic touch that these the quest line cards that evolve as you progress is just great. How it creates these emerging stories. All right. And like I said, I played this Commonwealth scenario multiple times, siding with both factions, and it could have not played any more different every time. Just from the from just the loot that I acquired, the character that I picked too, because I played with multiple characters, the enemies that were drawn to the board. So just great storytelling device. All right, just one of the best emerging storytelling tabletop experiences I've had. Now I do have a couple issues, and one of them is I've never had this issue with a Fantasy Flight game. This is like a first for me with a Fantasy Flight Games product, but learning this was a bit miserable, and especially like with adding all the expansions. Learning this, I had such a hard time learning this because the expansion content adds they add some rules that modify the base game rules. So you read the base game, learn to play, right, and then you read the expansion, and then you have to unlearn something that you read from the learn to play, and then so there's just so many things that you have to like unlearn without even having tried them if you want to play with the expansions from the beginning, right? Which everybody recommends. But also, there's so many little rules that are easily missed. This is one of this is one of the worst examples of this that I've encountered with the many board games that I've played. There's so many rules that are easily missed or can be misinterpreted or are nebulous. It took me. It wasn't until these last couple of games that I played where I felt like I played correctly, and it's okay. It tends to many such cases with when I played the first couple of games of a board game, lots of rules mistakes. But wow, I had so many rules wrong the first time I played. Like, you're not gonna be prepared just from reading the rule book once. I'll tell you that now. Not even close. There's so many important rules that are, or details that are omitted from just learning off of the learn to play booklet. Okay, just be prepared to very carefully study the rules reference and the learn to play, and then when you add the expansions, there's just so much. I had to create a cheat sheet for it, which I'll link, but yeah, this was very tough to learn properly. It's a very obtuse rule book and a very weird learning experience, and I have never had this experience with a Fantasy Flight game. Typically, these learning experiences with every Fantasy Flight game that I've experienced has been pretty spotless. It has been great rules reference, great learn to play. But here, I feel that this could have been a bit more time. This could have spent a bit more time in the oven, and a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel that Atomic Bonds kind of it's like this patch that they added to the game to get rid of the competitive element, which a lot of people took umbrage with. Why is this game a competitive game? So this game does have some issues, definitely. But in my case, just from the solo perspective, once you add all the expansions, that's gone, the competitive element, so that fixes that. My biggest issue is just the learning experience. I wish there was a official a official rule book with all, with all the expansion content added, and there's some errata too. There's even a broken quest, which I do mention this in my cheat sheet. There is a quest line when playing as the Enclave when siding with the Enclave in the Capital Wasteland quest, where you get stuck basically and you can't progress. So there is an errata there that needed to be added. So the game definitely has some rough spots, but it is a great storytelling device once you're learning and once you're aware of the errata and all of that. It's a great game. Combat is quick. It's very luck dependent. Do keep that in mind. If you have really bad luck early on, you could be doomed from the beginning. But in my experience, that really didn't happen in my multiple plays. I didn't really have horrendous luck where I was doomed from the beginning. You can actually get pretty damn powerful in this game just from acquiring the perks and the loot. The perks are amazing, by the way. They're really good. They really make you feel like like you have superpowers or something. It's really, the acquiring perks is awesome in this game. You can pull off some awesome stunts with the perks here. And one other thing is with the exploration here is not very chill. There is a timer element. You do have to make sure that you tackle the main quest. You're not going to be able to explore at your own leisure because if you don't keep tabs on the main quest, you'll run out of time really fast. And that might be a bit disappointing for some people because you might be used to, in the video game, you can just set aside the main quest indefinitely pretty much. Not really the case here, but not really the case here, but I really don't mind. I mean, there has to be some kind of element, and the other thing, some kind of timer element. But the cool thing about this game is extremely modular. So you can. I haven't played with any house rules. There's infinite house rules that people have concocted. If you go to Board Game Geek, there's so many house rules for catering the experience to how you want. I'm not big into house ruling things. I have not played this with a single house rule, and I've enjoyed the experience fine. It seemed really difficult the first few times, but there were tons of rules that I was getting wrong. And now that I have a much better understanding, gameplay's fine with one character. I'm willing to play with up to 2 characters. The 2-character experience is tolerable. I don't. Some people play with up to 3 characters. I think that's a bit much for me. Too much to keep track of. Too much table space. So two characters is fine for me. Sorry, up to 2, but obviously much prefer for these adventuring games. I just prefer playing 1 character. Some games, it might feel that you don't have enough time. So this is very modular. You can either play with 2 characters, or you can just give yourself more actions. You can extend the track, like the timer track for the faction. Just started a bit back here, right? So just instead of starting here, just start here, or instead of ending the game here, end it here, right? So this is just extremely easy to modify to your taste. Now, I don't tend to do that, like I said. So far, I've had a fun experiences without adding any house rules, okay? Yeah, so those are pretty much my thoughts on this. I do think that these are great. I think these are great adventuring experience. It's very luck dependent, but it creates some amazing emerging stories. It does evoke the video game pretty well. This is one thing I'll give it. Now before I do a proper comparison video between this and Wasteland Warfare. This does evoke the video game way better than Wasteland Warfare. Now, is it a better game? I don't know necessarily. Both games have many pros and cons. They're very different. So it'll be interesting making a little comparison video between the two to help you choose which one is your better Fallout experience, okay? But with the expansions added, which brings you more scenarios, improves the solo experience, adds more loot, more enemies, more of everything, more quests. This is an amazing storytelling sandbox, and it does convey it does convey the spirit of the Fallout video game very well. And with the special, the perks, the leveling up, the loot, it just does it justice. It does suck that the learning experience with all the expansion content added was kind of painful, to be honest with you. I did not enjoy learning this, and this is the first time this has happened with like I said, with a Fantasy Flight games. First time that's happened to me. But yeah, a painful learning experience, rough spots. It feels that they could have spent a bit more time in the oven developing this for sure. But even with all of that, this is one of the best adventuring games I have played. Really, really good. Plays great with one character as well. Yeah, so that's Fallout, the board game by Fantasy Flight Games. Wanted to just discuss my thoughts on this, and again, make sure to check out my comparison video between this and Wasteland Warfare once I get around to that. Or in the meantime, you can just go ahead and check out the Wasteland Warfare extended thoughts if you want to hear what I have to say about that, what I think of that as a solo game. Very interesting game in its own right, not even necessarily when talking about the fact that it's a Fallout game. It's just a very interesting game in its own right, so make sure you check that out. But I want to thank you so much for watching, and if you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comment section, and go ahead and like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.